Okay, hi, this is Ed again on my YouTube channel called Atheist the Bird with No Cage. Today is January 3rd?
Fine.
January 5th, 2020. I certainly haven't gotten used to that 2020 thing, but here we are. Okay. And I think I'm going to bounce off of the idea that I was talking about in either the last video or a very recent video. And that is the idea related to religious belief. And I think it has a place in most religions and maybe other modes of documentation. Anyway, or doctrines, and that's the idea of believing in believing. Now, I mentioned in another one, the first I heard of that idea, well, currently I will give a shout out and acknowledge where I got the ideas from Dan Dennett, who is a modern day philosopher, very bright man, and he came up with this idea of believing in believing to kind of explain the religious headspace. The problem is, of course, when we're talking to religious folks, there just seems to be a place where we can't come together because, for example, this person who we're talking about something that's supposed to be real, actually happened. The Bible, it's supposed to be basically an historic description of, well, Genesis of how the world came into being, etc. The problem is the religious person is making claims like, you know, the first words in the Bible are, in the beginning God made the heavens and the earth. Well, that sounds so much like a fairy tale to me that, but it's hard to, you know, it's hard to ask, do you believe that God really made the heavens and the earth? Well, sure. Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be any room to get into the idea of why. But anyway, more pointed questions are, do you believe Eve talked to a serpent? Depends on the religious person. They don't all say yes, but many of them do say, yes, of course, the Bible says it, it's true. That's it. And, you know, later on, a guy, perhaps an angel or maybe not, just a prophet, talking to his donkey and the donkey talking back to him, which is, of course, is a more difficult to believe part. No problem with talking to donkeys. It's kind of like talking to God. But when you get God or the donkey answering back, then we seem to have a disjunction, something that we can't agree upon. Anyway, right, I expounded on that idea in the last video. Excuse me. So I'm not going to belabor it too much. Well, maybe I will a little bit. You talk to religious people, and first of all, one of the things that we get is this: they believe it's absolutely true, whatever they say. If you're talking about anything, you know, one of my favorites is the Jesus character walking on water. And you ask, did that happen? Yes, did it actually happen? Are you sure it happened? They're absolutely sure that it happened. Salute. Now, the difference is, and one of the things I've learned, is that when somebody asks me a question, say they bring up, and they often do, Christian folks, they want to talk about evolution. How could that possibly be, you know, and how could you get something from nothing when they're talking about the Big Bang Theory and so on. And people like me, and I've learned to, it's a form of honesty when they ask a question, well, what happened, you know, before the Big Bang, or how did that start, or something like that. And my answer is, I don't know. And as far as I know, nobody knows. There's some ideas and models that explain how things happen. But so I'm in the boat where I'm happy with, I mean, I'm not happy with it, but I find fairly comfortable with the idea of saying, well, I just don't know. I'm not going to make some shit up. The religious folk hate that idea. They almost never will admit that they don't know the answer to something. They just say, God did it, and that's it. Okay, now I'm just going to tie this together. I may not even get back to the believing in believing idea, but what in the last day or two, while I was waiting for Jose Luis to come over and make this video, I get thinking about the idea of what can I do to change the format a little bit of my videos. And I decided, when I almost did it today, but the timing didn't work out, what I would like to do is interview a person on the video. One of two ways. Maybe the person can sit here beside me and we can just show them on the, you know, in the picture, and we can chat and talk about ideas. A person could be a religious person or a non-religious person. I'd really like to have a religious person to chat with. So I talked with my son about interviewing him, and now he lives in Vancouver, so of course we can't do the whole thing with him live, but we could have him on the phone and just put it on speakerphone right here somewhere, and Jose Luis has assured me that, yeah, we can do that. It shouldn't be any problem picking up the audio. So in the next very near future, I'd like to do exactly that. I'd like to interview my son. I'd like to interview my brother. I imagine he'll be willing to go along with the idea. And then think of other people locally that I can you know, have on camera with me, or just on the telephone line for interviews. I think it's not a big deal, and it's not going to be low tech, it's going to be no tech. I mean, telephone is we'd hardly say it's high tech, but we'll simply use a telephone and or the person just sitting here talking with me. So that's a look at my vision of the future as far as these videos go. And I mean, I'm fine with, I enjoy doing the videos for the most part. I like it better when I've got a better train of thought and I've got my bullet points down a little bit better. Sometimes I get meandering a little too much, as you've obviously noticed, but it's something that would be a little bit different, and maybe if there happens to be somebody watching, make it a little more interesting for the person watching. My name is Ed, and we agreed that it's January the 5th, 2020, and so I'd like to just call it a day on that one, and until the next time, I'll see you in the next video, and thank you very much for watching.